classic, R&B and hip hop. Urban Heat 98.1 FM and 1410 AM.
You're now listening to the Urban Heat 98.1 FM, and this is your favorite around the way therapist, Coach Law. Don't forget to tune in to Conversations with Coach LA, Sundays at 10 p.m. right here on the Urban Heat.
It's deeper than material things. I need some relation, good conversation, give me stimulation. What's your motivation? How you gonna add to me? Yeah, how you gonna add to me? How you gonna add to me?
Welcome to Conversations with Coach LA, and I am your host. Some of you guys know me by my government, Lakeisha Austin, and some of you guys know me as Coach Law. I am a psychotherapist and a life coach, and I have a down-to-earth approach, and I have a witty sense of humor, and I'm going to be using music, and I'm going to be using clinical skills tonight to talk to you about all things considered to be this thing called life. We're going to be debunking myths about therapy. So I want you to step into my office where we're going to talk to real people, have candid conversations, and then once again, make sure you chime in and help me encourage others to do something that they may never have done before, which is to set boundaries to fix their life. My office is now open. And remember, I'm billing you for this conversation. So share your experiences, relationship issues. And if you haven't done so already, go download that app, log in, get ready to get busy in this interactive chat because we about to have a conversation. Welcome again to Conversations with Coach LA, live on the Urban Heat. And we got this first song I want you guys to listen to, and I want you to pay attention to the lyrics because Beyonce and Jay-Z got something they want to tell you. So go ahead and play that song. 'Cause who wants a cliche love affair anyway?
Who wants that perfect love story anyway? Cliche, 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 cliche. Who wants that hero love that saves the day? Anyway, cliche, 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 cliche.
So y'all know that Facebook don't like us to play music for too long. So I just wanted y'all to get a little bit of taste of that. Some of y'all may not know that song by Beyonce, and the lyrics are very, very deep because oftentimes we don't want a boring love affair. Oftentimes we want to feel those butterflies. We want to be excited. We want to be swept off our feet. But what do we compromise for a love like that? So tonight's show is all about compromising. Compromise for what? And for why? And for who? And when? And all of that good stuff. So I got a special guest. I have my bestie also who had to come and show me some moral support in the office with me tonight. So are y'all ready to have this conversation? If you're ready and you're in the chat, I want you to say, I'm ready, Coach La. So type ready and put it in the chat. We got a few more songs we're going to play, but we're just going to play snippets because I truly believe that life is reflected in music and music is reflected in life. And I use music often in my therapy session. So stay locked, keep it tuned in. Don't go nowhere because we're just starting this conversation. And we're going to play a clip by Eartha Kitt that's going to talk about compromise. And then I'm going to introduce you to my first guest for tonight, who's going to talk to us about her experiences and what she thinks therapy means to her. So let's go ahead and get a little bit of a lesson on self-love and compromise from the famous Eartha Kitt.
But are you willing to compromise within a relationship?
To compromise? What is compromising? Compromising for what? Compromising for what reason? To compromise for what? To compromise. What is compromise?
If a man came into your life, wouldn't you want to compromise?
Stupid. A man comes into my life and I have to compromise? You must think about that one again. A man comes into my life and you have to compromise for what? For what? For what? relationship is a relationship that has to be earned, not to compromise for. And I love relationships. I think they're fantastically wonderful. I think they're great. I think there's nothing in the world more beautiful than falling in love. But falling in love for the right reason, falling in love for the right purpose, falling in love. When you fall in love, what is there to compromise about?
Isn't love a union between two people? Or does Eartha fall in love with herself?
Yes. I fall in love with myself, and I want someone to share it with me. I want someone to share me with me.
So, did you guys hear what Eartha Kitt just said? Because I know y'all in the chat. So I want to say what's up to all of the people that are tuned in. Courtney, what's going on? What's going on, Shay? What's going on, Stephanie? What's going on, Nakia? What's up, y'all? Thank y'all for tuning in. I see y'all on the taps chat. So let me ask you, what does Eartha Kitt tell us in that compromise about compromising that clip? First and foremost, right? She says, why do you have to compromise because a man shows up in your life? And I'm not going to say this is just for the men, for the women, but men, why do you have to compromise just because a woman shows up in your life? Now, this whole show's not going to be just about intimate relationships, because sometimes we compromise for family, we compromise for our job, we compromise for our parents, right? We compromise for a reason. So I want you guys to keep that in mind as we continue to move through the show, because my next guest is also going to be talking about compromise and how that's impacted her business, her mental health, and her relationships. So I do have a special guest in the office with me today. What do you think compromise is about, Miss B Fly?
Oh.
Yeah. Compromise.
Y'all, she putting me on the spot.
I am, because you're here. You wanted to come and join the conversation. So let me break it down for you. Compromise, according to Webster Dictionary, right? Or in this case, Google, right? Is concessions, right? You make concessions when there's a dispute, a disagreement, or a conflict. You can make concessions, and that's how we compromise. So we all compromise. Some of you might have thought I was going to come on here and tell you, oh, don't ever compromise. We should never compromise in relationships, but that's not exactly true. I think that what we need to do is realize why we're compromising. Is it because we're trying to get the person to like us? Are we manipulating them? Why do we compromise? Why do you think people compromise?
Well, I mean, you just can't. I mean, I think people compromise for different reasons,
Absolutely.
I cannot speak on everyone. Some folks go through things, and I know that, sometimes their morale is down, their self-esteem is down, and so they will compromise because they feel as though that's what they need to do, So some people do it with different intentions.
Agreed.
Right.
I think what happens when we don't know why, we sometimes can get resentful, and we can go into a place of self-betrayal. And when we're not sure why we are changing up or making an adjustment to something we want, we can find ourselves in a pickle. We can find ourselves angry at the other person and blaming other people for our actions versus, hey, I made that concession because there was something I wanted out of it. And often we don't think about, we always get something out of everything we do, be it good or bad, we get something out of it. So let's see. Stephanie Rose said she's confident in her own skin. Don't compromise for someone or for something that is untangled at the moment. Okay. I see Courtney says fall in love with yourself first. I think that really was the main point for me is I fall in love with myself and then I share that love with someone else. So question for you, what does self-love mean to you?
Oh, you talking to me? Mm-hmm. Oh, she's talking to me, y'all.
I'm talking to you. She want to give her a conversation. Now she's like, why are you talking to me? She just want to be on the camera looking nice. Yes.
No, okay. So the disclaimer: yes, I'm really here to support my bestie. But I love though she always brings the questions to me a lot of the times.
Right.
You know, I'm her Libra butterfly.
Okay, but I need you to answer the question. What does self-love mean to you?
Okay. First of all, so self-love to me, you know, that's a really deep question. Because at some point you have to figure out who you are as an individual. Okay.
Who you are as an individual.
You have to figure out, you have to know yourself.
Okay.
Okay. And a lot of times, you know, if, you know, folks were to ask, who are you? You know, that's a very intense conversation. So self-love pretty much is you have to figure your own self out. And you picked up on a lot of things when you did say that, you know, those emotions where folks will become frustrated and angry.
Yep.
When you pretty much don't, you know, get things your way when it comes to the whole compromise situation.
Absolutely.
But when you are confident, you know, within yourself because you know who you are, you know, that will not apply. And then let me repeat that. That will not apply. Because a lot of the times, you know, if you do compromise, if you know who you are and what you stand for, and you do decide to compromise, that is a decision that you make.
Yes.
And it's not, you're not making this decision to pretty much appease others, but because you want to have, you know, healthy relationships.
Agreed. I think, you know, because this comes up a lot with clients that are trying to navigate difficult relationships, and they feel as though they're compromising or they're bending over backwards or they're overextending themselves. And often they are afraid to say no. They're often afraid to rock the boat or challenge a situation because of fear of loss. That, you know, maybe the person will be mad at them, or when they need them, that person won't be there for them, so they don't want to say no. But a healthy relationship can withstand you saying no, not always being available, and you setting a boundary. But often we're not taught that part. Like, you know, we're not taught that it's okay to put ourselves first and to practice self-care. So compromise, knowing why you're compromising, is usually the first start to make a different decision. But if you're unsure and you're sort of just allowing other people to AKA rule your life, you're going to eventually end up being more resentful. So, what do you think about that?
What stuck in my mind was having other people to rule your life.
Right. Right.
Out of everything you said.
Right. How often do we say things like, they made me feel like that, or I'm that person did this to me? People are not doing things to you. They're living their lives and they're making decisions, and you can choose to allow their decisions to impact you, or you can, you know, move away from it. Oprah made a quote recently where she said, it comes a point where you either accept who people are or you walk away and you move on. And we can get so angry that people are not showing up for us and not doing what we need them to do, that we compromise and bend over backwards and continue to do things to get them to change. And they never change. And we're so depleted because we've given so much of ourselves to someone else. So I'm going to encourage people to just think about, why are you compromising? Put it in the chat. What are some reasons and some things that people have compromised? One of the things I know I've compromised on in the past, maybe, you know, letting my friends come over when I don't feel like being bothered. Because I get real antisocial, right? And I'm like, well, I'm going to let you come over. And I don't know about you, people just drop in on you and you're not really
exposed, y'all.
You're not really in the
exposed.
mood. You're not really in the mood for company, but you have company because you want to put your friends' needs first at that moment. So you may be like, no. They're like, come on, let me come over. Well, I'm just going to come over there. Next thing you know, you got company and you're having fun. That's a compromise. Because if I had to have my way about it, I would have been in my pajamas and I would have just stayed not being bothered, and she calls me boring. And so sometimes you need friends that can pull you out of your shell, right? So that's a compromise, and actually that's a good compromise. But it could go the other way if you have an overbearing friend that never gives you space, which I don't have a friend like that. She does give me space. But you could have that where you say no when they don't listen, or they get mad at you and don't talk to you for days because you didn't let them come over your house. You didn't let them come over your house. So I'm keeping it really light. You know, it's the first show. I don't want to run y'all away with, you know, jumping in on some other things that people compromise on. But that's one. A lot of people do not like you to just show up to their house unannounced. Anybody else got that as a boundary? You know, call first. Somebody I know sitting next to me don't always call first, though.
Oh, shots are fired, y'all.
I'm sipping my tea. But anyway, we're going to have my next guest who is going to be joining us in just a minute. She's going to call in tonight, and she's going to also talk to us about her business, things she's compromised on, and give us some updates on some upcoming events that she has going on here in Boston. So let's stay tuned to that, because we're going to be calling her shortly, and she's going to be joining the conversation. And I just want to give you guys just a little disclaimer. So none of my opinions have anything to do with the Urban Heat. They have not approved anything that I am saying. And if you are having a medical or a mental health crisis, please make sure that you seek medical attention. Call 911 and know that I am not your therapist. I know you guys eventually will be calling in for advice and consult from me at some point, because I know that time is coming. We will be opening up the phone lines for you to call, but I just want you to keep in mind that, yes, I am not your therapist, but I am billing you for this conversation. All right. So I'm just curious, right? When I think about the concept of jumping in and even doing this show today, I created something called a bet on self moment, right? And that's like a aha moment, a moment where you realize that you have to put yourself first, stop thinking about other people's opinion. So we're going to talk about that too, which is a bet on self moment. We're going to ask our guests about that. But did you ever have a bet on self moment? Where you was like, you know what? I've been putting everybody else's needs before my own, and the buck stops today. I'm betting on me.
First of all, I'm a Libra, y'all. And what does that mean? You know, yes, we're very nurturing and caring. So we always, you know, we always are thoughtful and put other people's needs, you know. I'm not going to say we put them first, but we do, you know, we do kind of sort of prioritize and say, you know, I know I'm a real sucker. And if I know something is going on or whatever, I'm always here to help, you know, regardless.
Okay.
Shaka sings it best. Through the fire.
through the limit. Through the wall. Okay. So are you saying then that you've never had a bet on self moment? Because I beg to differ.
No, don't listen. So just because, you know, I'm very springy and sunshiny and bubbly, never get it twisted. You know, I will take care of me. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I know how to put my foot down.
Okay.
You know?
So for you, putting your foot down is a bet on self moment.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Okay.
A lot of the times it's all about me anyway.
So wait, so you're a Libra and you know, a sucker, but it's always about you. The irony of that whole dialogue right there. I don't know which way to take that. But
it's not about me, y'all. Let's look at these. Listen, let's look at what the people are saying on the chat. Shout out to Stephanie Rose, because first of all, what she said was, honey, you're going to need more than an hour, because an hour just ain't enough.
Okay.
So I agree.
Well, you know, this is a pilot, guys. It's a pilot. There's a lot going on in the studio. So, you know, trying to learn all of the moving parts, like I said on my post, sometimes even when you're not 100% ready, you just got to say F it and just do it anyway. So I said I was going to start the show tonight. We starting the show tonight, but the backdrop is a lot of bloopers going on over here. So, anywho, Facebook, first of all, blocked me, so I can't go live. So I couldn't actually do everything myself because I'm blocked. I can't go live. Don't know why. I didn't do anything. I'm not Dita Weeda. I did nothing wrong. They just flagged me and blocked me. My guest actually showed up this morning at 9:30 a.m. instead of at 9:30 p.m. So there's been a lot of bloopers. And that's how life happens sometimes, And then I have a nice guest or some support who is compromising for me right at this moment and helping me to run this show tonight. So I'm ready.
Hey, when listen.
Well, we have a caller, right? And she is on the line. And so I want you guys to meet. She is unashamed to share her story of healing in hopes of inspiring others. She's committed to her mission of helping Black men and women heal by any means. An expert in where to find Black wellness in the Boston area, please welcome Boston's very own Naisha Deed, from the founder of Pure Spark, on the line. What's up, Naisha?
Hey, hello.
Hey.
Hey,
Good evening,
Naisha.
everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm so glad that you were able to adjust your schedule and still be on the line with me tonight. We had really hoped to be here in person, but you know what? We always find a way to be resilient and make it happen anyway. So welcome to Conversations with Coach LA. You're live on the Urban Heat, and I have Miss B Fly in the studio with me as well. And we have several people on the live listening and chatting in as well, so they are listening to the conversation. So the way I would like to start off finding out more about you, Naisha, is to ask you a question. What does therapy mean to you?
Wow. That's a loaded question. I think when I was younger, therapy was like where the quote unquote crazy people went, right? People that did not look like me. It was something that when I say we as Black people didn't do, I didn't necessarily understand. I think what I thought about it back in the day versus now was like, you go there and somebody just fixes your life for you. It's like you put it in the microwave, they tell you what to do, and then boom, like they help to fix your life. That was another perspective that I had about therapy kind of as I was growing up. But as I got older and went through my own struggles and sought out therapy, I realized that it was a team effort, right? Mm-hmm. First of all. And I realized that it was a tool that was going to help me along on my life's journey. So, all in all, my perspective about therapy definitely has changed from someone kind of looking on the outside, not really knowing and having all the stigma related to therapy, right? Mm-hmm. And then somebody who's kind of gone through it and was like, dang, I need somebody's help.
Right.
And it's actually okay. Yeah.
So I love that you said a team effort, because I think a lot of times people do think the therapist is just going to fix them and just going to come in and tell them everything to do. It's a collaboration. I love that you also said it was a tool and it was part of helping you through your life journey, which brings me to talking about your organization, Pure Spark. Can you tell us a little bit about Pure Spark and how that ties into your own mental health journey?
Yeah, sure. So I actually have a background in corporate accounting, and I just like to share that with people just so that kind of they know and understand where I'm coming from with all of this. And I went through a tough time in corporate, especially towards the end, after suppressing so many things, after code switching and dealing with imposter syndrome for so long. It eventually built up to the point where, you know, I was not able to handle it anymore, and I was unable to handle day-to-day life, and I was unable to just handle living, period. But after I went through what I went through in corporate in 2017, December of 2017, I got to the point where I started my own healing journey. And I know, you know, you just recently talked about having that aha moment.
The bet on self moment.
It was a yes. It was that and then some, okay? But I got to the point, thankfully, for community. I wouldn't be able to bet on myself, honestly, if it wasn't for the love and the community and the support that I had. And, you know, they actually helped to give me that confidence in the therapy and all that stuff. I had learned so much from going through all of this, all these trials and these tribulations and the trauma, and the healing from it. I had learned so much. And I finally got to the point where I felt in alignment with my purpose and like, oh, this must be why God put me on this earth. After 30-some years, I finally feel like I got it, you know? And, you know, it was my mom who actually said, Naisha, I think you should start sharing your story about, like, what happened to you. You've come such a long way. You've been through the fire. You know, you're like a phoenix rising. Like, I really think you should share your story. So initially I started out by sharing my story, and then I shared it with some friends on Facebook and social media. And the feedback that I had gotten after sharing my story of dealing with depression and suicidal ideations, the feedback that I had gotten from friends, from family members, written on the post, and, you know, more importantly, the ones that I got in my DMs that were really personal, I was like, dang, there's a lot of us dealing with mental health issues and concerns, and we're hiding it. We are all just playing the part, playing that
Talk
role.
about it.
We are just doing so. We are such great actors and actresses out here in these streets.
Talk about it, right? Talk about it, and then we often feel like we have to be super women or super men, right? Where we have to be all things to everyone, and often we get lost in the sauce with trying to show up in all these spaces for everybody. So I know you mentioned too, you talked about, you know, being in corporate America, because I too share a similar story of being in banking and investments, which a lot of people don't know that. I used to manage a bank before I went into social services and became a therapist. And you mentioned imposter syndrome, which Michelle Obama recently has also talked about her journey and her discovery in naming imposter syndrome. You want to tell people a little bit about what imposter syndrome is and how that played out with you?
Sure. Yeah. I can share that, and then I can, you know, continue on how I created Pure Spark. But to go back to defining what imposter syndrome means to me, I don't know if you go on Google it and find out what it means, you know, generically. But for me, it means not believing you belong somewhere, believing that you are an imposter, believing that you are playing a role, and you're afraid that somebody's going to find out that you don't belong somewhere.
Right.
And
you're not supposed to have
fear.
that seat at the table.
Yeah, I don't belong here. Even though I have the credentials and I have the experience, I still, for a lot of psychological reasons, don't believe I belong here, i.e., there's nobody else that looks like me at this table.
Right.
This table's full of a whole bunch of white men.
Talk
There's
about
no way
that.
I belong here. Right?
Yes.
So that's why we feel like we're an imposter, and that, you know, one of these days, and that's what kind of happened, you know, at the height of my mental health struggles, was I started to feel this intense fear, which, you know, I believe it was kind of imposter syndrome taken to like the nth degree, of like almost like paranoia, literally. Like it was, I know it was derived from imposter syndrome, but it turned into like paranoia, like, dang, these people are going to find out I don't know crap, like, and I don't belong here, and I'm just playing them all, you know? But it's really, I think, the root of that has to deal with the fact of that there's just not many of us in certain places, and as you climb the ladder, there's less and less of us, you know? So I think it's a structural, cultural, societal issue, you know, not necessarily something that we should wear the burden of. I think society needs to, and corporate America needs to start addressing some of these things. But yeah, that's some of the stuff that I was dealing with while I was in corporate. Yeah.
So as you came to realize that, which we call that in my field, self-discovery, right, and insight, self-awareness, right? You gained all of this insight and self-awareness. When did that turn into, okay, I'm going to tell my story and create an organization to help people connect to wellness and to find resources? Because I call you the mental health plug here in Boston. Like you keep your ear to everything connected to mental health here in Boston. So when did you say, okay, you know what, I want to start an organization, I'm going to call it Pure Spark?
Absolutely, yeah. I think it was, you're absolutely right, that whole self-discovery, which is scary because I'm like, well, dang, if I'm not Naisha, the corporate accountant, who the hell am I? Like, who am I? And it's a scary feeling. You feel kind of uneasy when you have to kind of, I don't want to say reinvent yourself, because I'm not reinventing myself. I'm actually finding myself, right? And getting closer to my purpose and, you know, God's purpose for having me here on this earth. It is very scary. It's almost like an identity crisis, if you want to call it that. But it really, like I said, going back to community and the fact that actually having loving, caring community helped to give me that confidence. I had my sisters, my cousins, my aunts, my uncles, people just giving me that love and support to help stabilize me during this whole situation. And then I had the encouragement from my mom saying, you know, Naisha, you just went through something so major. Like, I'm daring you to do something bold and share your story with so many, like, other people. And I shared it with a hospital located in Massachusetts called McLean Hospital, which is, you know, one of the best mental health hospitals in Massachusetts. And like I said, after I did that, the kind of what I posted on Facebook, the comments that I got, the DM messages that I got encouraged me even more. Again, community encouraging me and having an effect on me to see how I can help even further. And what I initially started doing was just sharing like psychoeducational information on social media from what I might have seen from other psychologists, therapists, clinicians sharing. I would just repost it and put it all in one place. And it was like, oh, what is depression? What are the symptoms? What does it feel like? What does it look like? What is anxiety? What are the symptoms? What does it feel like? What does it look like? And people are like, oh my God, this is so good. This is really good information. Like, thank you so much for sharing, Naisha, you know? And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, people need this. And this was back in 2019, right before the pandemic, right? And I'm sharing all of these different things. And I'm like, you know what? I want to go a little bit further, and I don't want to just keep it on social media. I actually want to have a place where we can be in community with each other, talking about this stuff.
Right.
And so I decided, okay, I want to start a peer support group. But, boom, guess what happened?
The pandemic.
The pandemic. So I had to do it virtually.
I remember that. Yep.
Yeah, we did it virtually. And that was great. I think I had you on. I had other therapists on, other clinicians, people in the wellness space.
Right.
And just giving community a chance to, like, ask some of these questions that we're just now starting to ask because we've never really been the community to really be in therapy like that, you know? And that was great. That was pretty successful. And then I
think
decided,
it was very
all right,
successful.
cool.
I mean, you had several different platforms and forums about connecting people to mental health. One of the things you did too that I saw and you posted about was connecting individuals to therapists of color, which I know has been a huge mission of yours. Anybody that knows, if you have had a hard time finding a therapist, that's been me. So we know that, especially during the pandemic, most therapists are booked to the max.
Right.
Finding a therapist of color is extremely hard. Matter of fact, even finding a therapist in network is really challenging for people. So I remember you had posted, I forgot the number, but you had connected a pretty substantial amount of people to therapists. Yeah. How many people had you connected?
It was 165 people that had signed up by March, beginning of March.
165 people. Wow.
Yeah, and we had opened it up in November, and I wasn't sure how many people were going to sign up. I was just thinking, maybe a couple of people, let's see who we can help.
Right.
But the form it just kept getting longer and longer, and I was trying to do my best, me and an intern. But by the time it reached 165, I had to shut it down, and we're strategizing now on like how do we maintain this? How do we keep it going? How do we streamline it? But we were able to successfully match over 120 people from the list of 165. So that's something I'm super proud of.
Yes, right.
And I definitely want to be able to continue to do that in the future because we realize Black people are ready to go to therapy. From this 5-month trial that we did, we had a chance to see that like Black people from all different walks, from all, different insurance types, if you will, from like Mass Health all the way up to Blue Cross Blue Shield, even Black men were signing up. And I'm like, people don't think Black men want to go to therapy, and they do. They just want to see a therapist that look like them,
right? So I know when I read the title, you said healing you on your journey to finding your pure spark, and connect, educate, and end the stigma. When you put things out in the universe, there's a saying: if you build it, they will come. And you really have been a trailblazer and a pioneer. I know you mentioned your mental health struggles and overcoming that, right? So, tonight's topic is all about compromising and compromise for what? How have you navigated, putting yourself first, especially, I don't know if you want to share actually what your diagnosis was or what you found out regarding your mental health, but how have you managed that and being able to let people know like what your boundaries are and what you're not going to compromise about?
Right. Yeah, so I was formally diagnosed in 2000 and I think it was 2008 with bipolar disorder. And initially when I was diagnosed, there was something, happening in my family that was extremely stressful. And, I was working still in corporate, but this was like a very stressful corporate job. And so I had gotten help for that. and thought, okay, I made it through. I'll never have to deal with that again. Like, done. And I go on about my life, not really changing anything. And then in 2017, boom, I'm back in the same situation, but way worse. So after going through two very tough situations, you start to reevaluate your life. Like, hold on, sis.
Right.
Wait a
that
minute.
that bet on self moment. Hello.
Hello. God's trying to tell you something. You gonna listen or no?
Right.
And I think that's what did it for me, was the fact that it was a reoccurring thing. And in both situations, what's the common denominator? Well, it's me, right? And then it's also, my environment had something to do with it. The type of work that I was doing that I wasn't passionate about had something to do with it. So in order for me to be in a healthier mental space, I have to change me and my environment,
right.
And so how do I change me? Well, or how do I work on me and improve me and get me to a healthy space? Well, I have to start taking care of me.
Right.
Okay, well, how do I start taking care of me? Well, it might be eating better, taking care of my body, telling people no, right? Which is kind of hard to do if you're a habitual people pleaser, right?
Right. We talk about that in my course. Yep.
Exactly.
It takes a lot of courage and vulnerability to do that.
It does to speak up for yourself, but it's like a muscle. Just like when you're working out, the more you do it, the better you get at it.
Absolutely.
And so I think for me, I realized that I knew what it was like to not take care of myself, and for having those things happen to me twice. I wanted to see what life would look like when I started taking care of myself, and it looked a whole lot better.
Well, I'm a big advocate for self-care. Those that know me, self-care is like, I'm always talking about self-care. And one of the things I admire about you is you practice self-care unapologetically. I mean, I saw you doing karaoke, yoga, you're consistently, doing things that bring you joy. And I see you be a model for that, and I think we share that in common. So you have an event coming up, right? Which I think is very much connected to healing, music, and dance. You want to tell, the people about the event?
Yes, I'm so excited. So yes, finding your pure spark, I coined that phrase because it really means, finding what brings you peace, finding what brings you joy, finding what brings you healing. So I posed the question like, what is your pure spark? And you can have multiple pure sparks. One of my many pure sparks is, like you said, yoga. Also singing, being around family, being around children, being out in nature. I mean, the list goes on and on. Depending on the day, I'm going to tap into different things. And that's what I'm trying to share with the community is like, hey, y'all, I also want you to try and plug in to your pure spark and find out what makes you spark, what brings you peace, what brings you joy, what brings you back to homeostasis.
Right.
And one of those modalities it's actually one modality that encompasses many things, is dance, specifically African dance, West African dance. And when I say it encompasses many modalities or activities, you have sound, right? The drums. So we'll have two drummers there. And then we have the dancer, the choreographer, who's going to be sharing a dance with us that folks in his country of Congo, I believe, dance to like uplift their spirits. Dance and moving our body, right? So sound, moving our body, and also being in community, something that I think we as a people, as Black folks, We're very much so a community-focused, people. But I think living in America, sometimes we can kind of revert to like what's common here and being super independent. But I think it's important for us to get back to our roots of being in community with each other. I talk about community. I've talked about it multiple times on this conversation about how my community was. I mean, it's really, my community is the reason why I'm here. My community is the reason why I'm well.
Mm-hmm.
I saw somebody post, the whole idea of it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it takes a village to raise an adult too. Like, we need each other.
Can we talk about that?
Talk about it.
So you've mentioned that, word community, I think several times. And again, one of the reasons why I wanted to do conversations with Coach La is to really debunk myths about going to therapy and what people think therapy is like. So I'm glad you've shared a lot of your experiences of therapy being insightful and helping you to really, rediscover yourself. I know there was a comment about life is not about finding yourself, but creating yourself. And I think that's a great point, and with your organization of finding your pure spark, often what helps manage mental health, it's having a life. And your life is more than your titles. Your life is more than your roles. And it's more than just going to work, coming home, and doing it all over again. So when I think about Pure Spark, that's what I think about, is that often we lose sight of those things that we thought about when we were children. And we had all these dreams and we had all these things that we did. We just go outside and run and just, we played. We did things that brought joy. We didn't stress. And often we need to tap back into our inner child. And not just for fun, but also to heal.
Absolutely. That's right. That's right. Get to the root.
It is all a journey and process. So when is this event going down? I just posted the link into the chat for those that are in there, that are on the chat, so that they can click on the link and be a part of the event. But can you tell them the date, the time?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. So the event we're about 2 weeks away. It's on May 6th. I like to get it out in front of people early because I know it's starting to warm up, so people's calendars are going to get packed. But it's Friday, May 6th at 6 p.m. at the Brook Charter School in Mattapan. And, there's intentionality as to why I put the event in Mattapan. It's because of some of the data that was captured by, I think, Boston Medical a few years back on the mortality rates and, diabetes and all of these different risk factors, physical risk factors that's going on in Mattapan. But what was missing from the report was, mental health factors, which I assume, would, and this is in comparison to other neighborhoods in Boston, like in comparison to like Roxbury and whatever, Mattapan was ranked kind of like, very, I guess, high or low, depending on the scale that you use, but needing more attention as it related to health and wellness.
Well, that's
awesome.
Why
that's why I particularly decided to start out, with this whole series in Mattapan.
Well, good stuff. So, Nyesha, it's been great having you with me today. Can you tell people how they can find you, how they can follow you on social media? And I will, of course, do another announcement about the event, and I did post it in the chat. But how can people connect with Pure Spark?
Thank you. Yeah, they can find me on all social media platforms. Chances are, if you just type in the word Pure Spark on all social media platforms, such as LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, you're going to find me. Also, you can check out our website for our wellness directory, our all-Black wellness directory that includes therapists and wellness practitioners at www.yourpurespark.com. But again, we're pretty active on Instagram, I'd say, and also LinkedIn. So if you're looking for, ways to kind of heal yourself or, heal yourself in with some support, we're here for you. And I can't wait to relaunch our matching program towards the end of the year, beginning of next year, so we can actually start matching people again. That is what really brought me a lot of joy. So I can't wait to start doing that again.
Oh, awesome. Naisha, I love our conversations. I'm so glad that you were able to be a part of my first episode. I bought my ticket to come and do some African dance. So I'm excited.
I saw that.
Yes, I'm excited to participate in that. So I want to send you off to continue with your finding your pure spark, as I know you will. You got to invite me to the next time you do karaoke. And please stay tuned and stay logged in listening. And as we wrap up the show, I have a few more minutes. And I'm just really thankful that you were able to spend some time with me today.
Yes, ma'am. We was going to make it work one way or
Yes,
another.
we was going to make it work one way or the other. So thank you for joining me in my virtual office, and we will talk soon. Have a wonderful evening.
You too.
You're welcome.
Good
Bye.
Good night.
Good night. Well, I really love talking to her. I mean, to take your diagnosis, to take your journey, your trial and your tribulation into create an organization to debunk myths about therapy and to live out loud and live your truth is what Betting on Self is all about. So I'm super excited about that. I know people are like, listen, you definitely need longer than an hour. I got about 9 more minutes with all of you lovely people out there. I just want to do some shout outs and some thank yous because I see a lot of people's on here. So shout out to Mr. Isle. Thank you, Courtney. Tamara, thank you. I mean, I can't even. Sharika, Sheila, thank you all for just joining and being a part of the conversation. And to all the people that are listening, thank you for taking time to listen as well. So I wanted to play a song that really kind of speaks to me and spoke to a lot of what Naisha was talking about. And it's by Karen White, Not Your Superwoman. So we're going to play a snippet of that, and then we'll be right back on Conversations of Coach LA on the Urban Heat.
Early in the morning, I put breakfast at your table and make sure that your coffee has its sugar and cream. Your eggs are over easy.
So, as you guys know, compromise, the word compromise, which is concessions, you want to make sure that you are thinking about why you're compromising. It is a personal choice. Concessions only need to be made when you're resolving conflict or wanting to resolve a dispute. Consider your values, your needs, your beliefs, and of course, you want to make sure you're considering your boundaries. And most importantly, you always want to bet on self and you want to trust yourself. Know that you got this, and you don't have to be anybody's superwoman. All you have to do is put yourself first, put one foot in front of the other, and always know that you got this. I want you guys to enjoy your week. And once again, thank you for tuning in and listening to the first episode of Conversations with Coach La. I'll see you guys next week. Have a wonderful evening.
Bye, everyone.